This episode of Ghoulish is sponsored by Dreams. Go have some. Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Ghoulish. I am Max Booth, a host. And on today's episode, I am talking to my pal, Cody Goodfellow, who is a writer that I quite respect, enjoy. I'm a fan. Listen, I'm a fucking huge fan of Cody Goodfellow. He can do no wrong in my book. And I am thrilled to tell you, I mean, I've been talking about it in the podcast, but I'll tell you now because this is the Cody Goodfellow episode through my small press, Perpetual Motion Machine Publishing. I had the immense honor of releasing his new novella, The Flying Nun. And that's spelled None, not Nun, The Flying Nun. It's a novella that I messaged them one time. I don't know when I messaged them this. It might have been like a year ago, maybe even 2 years ago. It was through Facebook, and I deleted my Facebook since then, so I have no way to go look at the receipt. But basically, Matthew Reveal, who is a great illustrator, book cover designer, he posted this image of a nun that he had made. He said, caption this. And Cody immediately responded with The Flying Nun, again, spelled None. And it was just like, almost like it was, like it was meant to be almost, right? That's an expression you will hear a lot on today's episode. Just wait. But, it was like, how could such a perfect title exist on the most perfect cover? It was like, how did Cody know to type this within seconds of Matthew posting it? And everybody agreed that it was a great caption, but I wanted it to exist beyond just a caption. So I messaged Cody and I said, hey, you should write this book and you should let me publish it. And then I went and I bought the photo from Matthew to use as a front cover. Before, I don't even know if Cody had agreed to write it yet. I can't remember now. I can envision it so easily in my head of why this needed to be a book and why Cody needed to publish it. And plus, it helped that I was a mega fan of him already. So I didn't know. I didn't think he would say yeah, but to my joy, he said yes. And then he wrote the book, The Flying Nun. And now, it's out now, today, May 25th, a Tuesday, is the release date of The Flying Nun by Cody Goodfellow. It is a hell of a trip, folks. I don't know what else to tell you about it. I mean, I could spoil it a bit. I don't want to, though. I want you to go into it kind of blind. Just know it's about religion. It's about faith. It's about nuns. It's about astral projections, which is the topic of today's episode. There's a lot of traveling by way of spirit in The Flying Nun, and we get into that. We get deep into it in this episode. Cody is a really intelligent person, which is fucking obvious if you've ever read anything he's written. I mean, he knows a lot about a vast array of topics, and on this episode of Ghoulish, we get into quite a bit of stuff. I don't even want to keep talking in this intro. I want to just end this now and let you get into the actual conversation because it's fucking fascinating, and I think you're going to enjoy it. I think you will enjoy The Flying Nun. No, strike that. I think you will enjoy it. I know you're going to enjoy it. It's a great book. Read The Flying Nun, and also go buy other books that he's released. Go read Scum of the Earth. Go read Radiant Dawn and Ravenous Dusk. Go read Unamilica. Read Sleazeland. Read Repo Shulk. I mean, this guy's been around a while, and his books never like disappoint you. He has such a consistently original voice in fiction that it fucking baffles me that he's not like a household name at this point. Cody Goodfellow will give you a good time. I promise you that. Listen to this episode, read The Flying Nun, read all of his books, and have a good fucking time. Thank you. Let's listen to my episode with Cody Goodfellow about astral projections, which is a thing that maybe is real. I don't know. Possibly. Let's find out. I did a podcast this morning with fucking Chuck Tingle, and
No
also
shit.
that guy's a maniac, man. Also, extremely intelligent. Yeah. It was one of the most intelligent conversations I've ever had about the whole genre. Was with him today. I was baffled.
Wow. Well, lower your standards way the fuck down. I wonder if it's not because you were talking to Chuck Tingle that now there's a rider on your Zoom use going forward that you have to warn people when you're recording.
Maybe.
Yeah. I once did an interview with this guy named Michael Hutchinson, and he wrote a book called Mega Brain. This is actually kind of relevant to what we're talking about later. All my tangents weave back together into a finely crafted basket made out of my own pubes. But I was doing this article on mind technology, on like alternative means of boosting peak mental performance and inducing, transcendental mental states and stuff. And this guy had written this book that was like a survey of all this amazing technology, light and sound machines, cranial electrical stimulation, sensory deprivation tanks, binaural audio beats, astral projection and stuff. And when I called him, he was off the hook. He was super fired up. He was like slightly more mellow than I am right now. And as the conversation went on, it ascended into these heights of metaphysical speculation, from this fringe pseudoscience stuff to full-blown spiritualism. And then it took this like nosedive into cuckoo Aquarian age conspiracy theory about government agents and black helicopters and stuff like that, trying to stop, the spiritual revolution. And then I finished this interview, and it was for a multimedia magazine. So I had audio, and I was cutting together the audio for it and everything. And so it wasn't just going to be his words filtered through my quotation. You're going to hear exactly how fucking bull goose loony this guy was. And about a week or two later, his wife reaches out to me, and she's like, Michael was having kind of an episode when he did the interview with you. I'm like, no shit. But yeah, we'd really prefer to have him talk to you again and maybe kind of set the record straight, because we both feel, when she was monitoring the phone conversation, that this doesn't best represent Michael. And so, yeah, I did another interview with him, and he was the down end of his cycle. I mean, clearly the guy's dealing with bipolar issues and stuff like that, and there's nothing unfair about that. And I weighted the second interview against the first one, but what he was saying, none of what he was saying was contrary to what he believes to be true, and that was the point of the whole article, and kind of the point of my TED talk today is that this thing that formed the basis for the product in question, which I will be endorsing, is there's a lot of debate about whether it's how real, or whether it's real or not. But even if it's not, it does point to, even the most skeptical interpretation of it does point to the idea that maybe the perception of the relation between the brain and the mind and the body and the soul is a lot more complex and maybe unexamined. And there's a lot that it can do and can know that we've closed ourselves off to.
Well, how do you open that then? What do you do?
Well, everybody dreams, right? Even earthworms dream. And dreams, by any sort of interpretation, are processing your reality, reconciling your internal to your external reality, and examining things that consciously are perhaps too seismic and too submerged, or too out in front, or just too abstract to grasp in conscious thought. And one of the things that human beings have always been able to do in their dreams that they couldn't do in reality is see a larger, higher reality. And our understanding of what dreams are, when something, weird and full of all kinds of rich symbolism, and also freighted with this very heavy emotional weight, a sense of fear and trembling. Ancient human beings were perfectly justified in thinking of this stuff as thinking of this as visitations, as another intelligence reaching out to you and announcing itself and declaring something, or that you're journeying to another reality. It's been something that we've had that has gone through, all kinds, that's evolved on its own. My personal introduction to the idea was through the invaluable resource, indeed the only multi-volume encyclopedia set that should be in every enlightened home, the Man, Myth, and Magic series. You familiar with that?
Yeah. I actually have all of those. Yeah.
Right. I eventually ended up getting all of them, but my grandmother only had volume 1. And so I learned a whole lot about Astarte and astral projection and Africa. But in that, they had this fantastic article on astral projection that showed these diagrams of the etheric body emerging from the sleeping physical body and the connection with the silver cord and stuff. It didn't have dragons and human sacrifice and tits in it, so it was kind of a secondary or tertiary concern until my next great spiritual awakening, which, as with so many right-thinking Americans, came with Dungeons and Dragons, where they introduced the concepts of the ethereal and the astral plane. And it's as a kid, you see it as just another place to go fuck up monsters and take their loot. But the idea persists and it grows with you. And as the ancient Egyptians, Chinese Taoist alchemists, and Hindu mystics all had and explored these traditions of soul flight, this idea that the mind and the soul can leave the body, and that this can be a discipline that you can acquire. And there's a quote by Zhangzi that jumped out at me. I'm not doing this off the top of my head. Yeah, I rated Wikipedia, so you don't have to.
Thank you.
Yeah, right. But this grabbed me from this Taoist alchemical text. Zhangzi, with a drum as his pillow, fell fast asleep, snoring and motionless. His primordial self, however, went straight into the banquet room and said, "My lords, here I am again." And it shows up in the book of Ecclesiastes. It's a quote: "Before the silver cord be loosed, or the golden bowl be broken, or the pitcher be shattered at the fountain, or the wheel be broken at the cistern." And it's a metaphor looking at the soul as the driver of the body, as a vehicle. But that's also the source of the modern notion of the silver cord as being the binding between the spiritual and the physical body. With training, you can acquire the discipline to leave your body at will and go wherever you want. But there's always an anchor that pulls you back.
Now, what type of when you say training, what type of training is involved?
Okay, well, for astral projection, it's said that almost everyone, they reflect on it. And this is anecdotal as all hell, because there isn't a department of astral projection at any university, although the CIA had a hell of a program, the remote viewing program, about which more later. But if you can, everybody has a state where they've been in a fugue state or intoxicated, where it happens to them, where they have the sense of leaving their body and experiencing seeing their body without eyes, and then maybe floating up through the ceiling and seeing the sky, seeing the whole town, seeing friends and family and loved ones, across great distances, or even of journeying to other realities. And there's a wealth of anecdotal experience in the form of near-death experiences, which where people are, dying on an operating table, and they suddenly find themselves looking down on their body. They go up through the roof, they go up through the clouds, and they emerge in this vast tunnel, and they can see all of their loved ones waiting and watching them, and they're heading towards this light. And then, Abraham Lincoln or Gilgamesh or somebody jumps out and goes, "Not that fucker, he's got work to do." And they're yanked back by their silver cord, and they suddenly find themselves in the body, and the nurse or the doctor looking over them going, "Yeah, he looks like he's back. Shit, give his stuff back." And what's weird is one of those things, we all hear those stories about people who almost go to heaven when they die, and yet, according to surveys that have been taken, an equal number of people go to the other place. and they find themselves dangling over flames, and all the most evil people in the world looking at them, going, one of us, and then the spirit body, the etheric body, cries out, "No, I repent. I will make good. Show me no more, spirit. I'll buy the cripple a Christmas goose." And they find themselves back on the operating table, and maybe they mend their ways, maybe fuck it. But there's a for every one of these anecdotal stories, there's clinical research performed by psychologists. Michael Hutchinson, when he was telling me about when he was in high dudgeon, the manic end of his scale, was telling me about this psychologist, Michael Persinger at Laurentian University in Canada, and how this guy was working with direct stimulation of the temporal lobes, and that he got to where he could induce a near-death experience. He could send you to heaven or hell, or have you get abducted by UFOs, cause you to
How was he inducting this?
By direct but mild electrical stimulation of the temporal lobes, which okay. When somebody has an epileptic seizure, there's a storm of activity in the temporal lobes. I mean, there are different kinds of epilepsy, but specifically temporal lobe epilepsy can cause those kind of things. And like they'll point to like the incident where Saul on the road to Damascus is knocked flat on his ass in the road and has this vision. And when he stands up, he's no longer Saul, he's now Paul, and he becomes Christ's fiercest advocate. That was you can look at it as a visitation. You can also interpret it as he had a temporal lobe seizure, and that temporal lobe seizure allowed or induced a state, a transcendental state in which all of the physical concerns suddenly fell away, and you see the universe in this almost Platonic idealized reality where you now see the big picture. And so you could look at it as literally as God reached down, or an angel came down and smote Saul with the truth, or you could look at it as he had an epileptic seizure, and in looking for answers and in trying to figure out how to reconcile the crappy, earthbound reality that we were in, he saw Jesus as the one bearing the light, and the one hoping to guide us to that other higher reality, and he dedicated himself to that. And there's lots of incidents throughout history where these kinds of things have happened. And so astral projection is taking that, hopefully drawing upon that, the experience. Most people that find out about it or go looking into it, trying to find out how can I do this, are people who have had the experience once. There are places and there are groups. There's a modern author named Robert Monroe who wrote a book called Journey of the Body, and he wasn't the first one. I mean, the term astral projection is a theosophist term promulgated by Helena Blavatsky, who was a mystic in the late part of the 19th century, who just kind of concocted this huge salad bar survey of mystical traditions and repackaged them into this new thing that kind of smelled enough like science that it caught on in America. And there were franchises and these schools where people were learning how to acquire these mystical skills, learning how to leave their bodies and go get secret knowledge and stuff. And they were kind of appropriating or misrepresenting, shamanic traditions, which, still goes on today. You can go to South America and there's a big industry of ayahuasca tourism, where you can take this very incredibly potent hallucinogen that's part of a shamanic tradition, where medicine men would use this to journey to the other reality and gain secret knowledge, find a cure for somebody who has a disease, find a name for a new baby, divine the future. And
a name for a new baby?
Yes. This was a sacred thing, and it wasn't always the parents' job. In a lot of Amazonian traditions, when the baby was born, they're in a very vulnerable state because they're a person without a name, and so the shaman would go on an ayahuasca journey and go to that higher reality and find out find the person's name. It wasn't something you invented or just named them for your uncle. Yeah, no, it's a big deal.
I'll imagine doing that and discovering, my baby's name's going to be Chad.
right. Yep. And his name shall be Adolf, and he shall make things pure. Oh crap. So
whoops.
Yeah. Imagine. Perish the thought of having to go back and kill baby Hitler in a time machine. Yeah. If you just have to go in the next room. But, yeah, can I pile the tangents high or what?
Please go right ahead.
it's a dagwood of tangents. And Swedenborg was a prominent 19th century mystic, laid out disciplines and theories for how to astrally project. Edgar Casey, the sleeping prophet, would leave the current world, but via what he called etheric travel. In order to attain visions of the future. But like Robert Monroe actually founded it as a school. He was a guy who had these experiences and worked very rigorously and systematically with old-fashioned rock rib Yankee brio to iron it out and make it an objective thing, to make it a thing that was reproducible. And his journeys, he also coined the term and the acronym. That's when you know something's been Americanized, is when it's a spiritual tradition becomes an acronym. He journeyed to what he believed were heaven and hell and all kinds of other dimensions, and he encountered what he called other energy systems, or OESs, which were, what other traditions would call angels, demons, gods, or aliens. And he would learn things about the future and stuff. And he founded this school, which continued, the Monroe Institute. At least when I interviewed poor Hutchinson, I also spoke to, I believe, Skip Atwater from the Monroe Institute, and they have a retreat up in some mountains. I want to say in North Carolina. And you can go there, and they have CHEC. It's another acronym, CHEC, and I can't be arsed to look it up. You can go into these pods that block out. They're soundproof and light proof and everything. And it's kind of like a sensory deprivation tank. It's designed to induce or create the right circumstances for you to use the meditation and lucid dreaming techniques, because it's a lot like lucid dreaming, which is unquestionably a real phenomenon in which people, when you're in a hypnagogic state, whether it's you're dodging the snooze alarm and you're kind of half awake, half asleep, and your conscious imagination is engaging with that rich visualization properties of sleep, and you can train yourself to induce a hypnagogic state where you're between waking and dreaming, and you can kind of do dream work. And I know a lot of people, and therapists have worked with a lot of people that do explore lucid dreaming, but they generally are more practical, or at least more grounded in acknowledging, yes, what I'm exploring inner space. I'm not leaving my body and exploring outer space. I'm not going to find some secret knowledge or be able to, find lost gold or Amelia Earhart or anything. But you can find a lost gold or Amelia Earhart somewhere down in your limbic system or in your buried memories. It's fascinating because undoubtedly it's a mystical tradition, but mystical exploration for the ancients was science. They were trying to gain a higher understanding of the world. There wasn't a question of separating what you believe from what you know, because they objectively knew so little, or seemed to know so little by a very materialist Western viewpoint, and yet had this rich enough exploration that whether or not they believed they were going to the spirit realm, or just exploring the collective unconscious, or their own individual subconscious, they were bringing forth knowledge and wisdom that sustained and nurtured them and kept those traditions alive for thousands of years until they met their first white person. But these things seem practical enough and can mutate into these incredible weird variations. I mean, the CIA, as I mentioned before, adopted what they called a remote viewing program, where this is around the same time that they were buying.
Was this showing MK Ultra?
It's in the same era, and so it was like down the hall. But yeah, that was what I was going to give for context. Is this is the same time that they were buying up bulk lots of LSD from the Sandoz laboratories in Switzerland and trying to corner the market on it, and dosing people at parties in San Francisco. And they had like covert fuck pads where they were exploring whether prostitutes could use LSD and other psychedelics and other narcotic substances to break down people's will.
That was called Midnight Climax, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Right. And you can see how carried away they were getting, because just if only in the names of the fucking operations, how nutty they were. And they would practice, and they were like, well, they might use this on us. We've got to be prepared. So they would dose each other, and it got to the office climate got to where you'd walk in and there's guys turning cartwheels and speaking in tongues on the desk. And it's like, yep, got into the water cooler's been dosed again. Watch your ass, and those stories that the historical stories that were meant to make people afraid of trusting LSD or ever experimenting with psychedelics. Here about, I heard about this guy as a government agent, and he took it and he jumped out of a window. I mean, that guy was a Army intelligence officer who was on a weekend retreat with like three highly placed CIA operatives. And one of them thought it'd be great to bring their work into their leisure time and dose the whole group. And this one guy had a really shitty trip. Mm-hmm. And he was depressed and unsettled and freaked out. I mean, yeah, who that bought into the Madison Avenue, Washington, Eisenhower era worldview wouldn't be traumatically shattered, but whereas a lot of people would find it liberating, and some other people, enough people that were in the CIA, would somehow be turned on and liberated without ever losing any of that nasty Manichean solipsistic viewpoint that made America, the world's foremost dirty cop. But this guy was really troubled and depressed by it. And rather than let him go home to his family, they held on to him in an observation in a hospital. And either he was still so depressed after the incident that he leapt out the window to his death, or if you buy into conspiracy theorists, and Lord knows there's never turned out to be a grain of truth in any conspiracy concocted about the US government or the CIA, that they threw him out the window because he was insisting, no, this wasn't fun. Fuck you. I'm going to fucking tell the world what you idiots are fucking doing. And that's the olive on the top of this tangent sandwich. But the remote viewing project was this utterly bonkers, but relatively harmless, except in terms of government waste and how it would make them look, project where they were experimenting with psychics, and they would try to train psychics to create reproducible results where these psychics could become spies, to try to get them to visualize, okay, what do you see Khrushchev doing right now? Where is he? And what is, look over the physicist's shoulder. Is he, have they built a neutron bomb yet? And they whatever they may have believed in their little dark crypto fascist hearts about what was really going on, they felt they had to explore it because they heard the Russians were doing it too. And the Russians were no doubt getting funding for their projects because, well, we've got to explore this, because right or wrong, we've got to find out whether it's there, because we know the CIA is doing it and we cannot have a crazy pants gap. So we mouth each other into exploring these cockamamie notions where, trying to make a James Bond out of a Uri Geller or something. But in the end, it came to nothing, and it hurt a lot fewer people than, MK Ultra or Artichoke or MK Search or any of those other those other weird ass excursions into dark fantasy land. But it was a fascinating exploration in itself of how compelling these ideas are, and it does force you to ask yourself, what if there is some truth to it? I don't know. Have you ever had what you might think of as a legitimate out-of-body experience, Max?
I have kind of experienced something, and I don't know if it was just the fact that I was maybe possibly dead for a second, or what was going on. I was 17 when this happened, and I was picked up by my brother, who's a decade older than I am.
Right.
He is very much a guy who does lots of drugs, except he was on probation at the time and getting checked a lot. So he decided the thing that he would smoke from then on would be like those incense things. The one he was smoking was called King Crypto. Are you familiar with this shit?
I'm not sure, but are we talking about salvia?
I don't. Can you buy that in a gas station?
You could. Well, probably in some states. I mean, you can buy it. you could buy it in head shops. I'll tell
Maybe.
you my salvia story after this. Yeah.
Okay. I'm not
Yeah.
100%. I just know it was called King Crypto. So,
Okay. Okay.
okay. Anyway, so I smoked that with him and behind the house, and we decided to go someplace, and we're driving, and I'm in the
Right.
passenger seat, and all of a sudden my eyes will still wide open, but my vision is like if you were looking at a ceiling fan from underneath it, just lots of like
Right.
random black swipes, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I realize my head is like tilted down against the window, and I can listen to anything going on. I can see, but I am just completely paralyzed and I can't talk at all. And
God.
my breath is above me, just like crying, screaming my name. I don't have any memory of what happened between those moments, but suddenly he was like above me crying. He's on the phone with someone, driving around. He's talking, I believe, to my mom at this point, saying he's going to take me home and
To the
throw me in an ice tub to see if I
Oh
wake
my
up.
God.
And
Wow.
my mom, I
I've seen
guess.
Jacob's Ladder. I know how this shit works.
My mom is like, "Go take him to a hospital, you idiot." So
Right.
they go to they take me to the hospital. I
Oh
can't get
shit.
up, of
Right.
course. Also, I should say during this while this is happening, I had a headphone in my. I was listening to music. And
Right.
I only had one of the headphones in, and I was listening to a Modest Mouse song called "Float On." And the whole
Yeah.
time this is happening, I keep feeling the fucking coolest going on to float on, which
Oh
is
my
not
God.
what you want. I don't know if it was on
Yeah.
repeat or
Yeah.
what.
And it was spooky slow and children were singing it. The reverb was turned up to 12. I'm like, oh shit, I'm in a gritty reboot of an 80s horror movie.
Exactly.
I've been there, man.
So
Yeah.
they come out, the hospital staff, they get me in one of those wheelchairs. They take me
Yeah.
to a room, and I don't have any recollection of like what happened
Yeah.
after they got me out, but suddenly I was in a bed and I was just vomiting like the fucking exorcist, man, just across
Wow.
the room. And yeah, they told me later on that like they had to do like shock shit to my chest to get me out of it. So I guess
Right.
maybe I possibly died in for like a second. I don't
Uh-huh.
know.
Yeah.
But while all that was going on, I do recall, it's been a while now, but I recall like at the same time also existing like in this fucking like void almost that was nothing but black. And I
Yeah.
I kept thinking, how long have I been in this goddamn
Yeah.
nothingness? It felt like endless. So
Uh-huh.
that's my only experience with that. And I don't know
Yeah.
if it was just my brain was just damaged and that's what it conjured, or if something
Yeah.
else happened. I go between.
Right, right, right. But it's yeah. I mean, there's the the root note. I mean, that separates any other hallucinatory phenomenon from a genuine OOBE is that you at some point you look down and see your physical body, and there's that shock of realizing, wow, I am not my body. I'm looking at it, and it's like I'm looking at my car at a parking lot. And in a lot of cases where people describe that thing, that moment, that shock of recognition, I'm not my body, and seeing that you're not in it tends to yank you back into your body. And then your eyes pop open. You're like, whoa, that was weird. But acquiring the discipline of astral projection, whether it's a mystical thing where you're genuinely leaving your body and go into the spirit realm, or whether you're just imagining it, it is a valuable metaphorical tool for coming to grasp consciously that yeah, you are not your body, you're the driver of the car, and recognizing that it's not just a vehicle, it's also a prison. Whether or not we go on past that, cultivating that ability to imagine that and that realization is a step closer towards enlightenment.
So
For
what have
me, I mean,
you experienced?
well, I was not involuntarily sober going through life. I was never an insob. But I experimented extensively with drugs. Like in high school, it was mostly pot and alcohol. I discovered
Mhm.
alcohol and I didn't really get along so well, but weed was my new best friend. I was at a party once with my girlfriend the senior year of high school, and I got stoned into the bejesus zone. And I remember reclining in this chair, and feeling not paralyzed, but feeling like I was moving inwardly, like I was swimming, and yet very aware that my body wasn't moving at all. And it felt like it wasn't so much that I was paralyzed and capable of moving. My body felt heavy. The animating force in my body I could feel as distinctive from my body. I could hear the music playing. For me, there was this cheese ass bargain basement rockabilly band that had this song, like a hillbilly teenager torch song about losing his girlfriend in this car accident. And as I recall, there were like maybe a series of songs interconnected. It was sort of a rock opera about the accident and the funeral and everything, and he's pining for her. And the last song, he's digging her body up, and the chorus is or the earlier songs, the chorus was "I want my baby back," and as he's digging her up, you can hear his voice gets gradually more cavernous as he's digging his way deeper down into the earth until it's just this very cryptic, wafting refrain going, "I got my baby back," and that was what was playing on repeat in my mind. And my girlfriend was like playing with my hand going, "Honey, come on, let's go. She wanted to meet our friends at this coffee shop downtown. And I remember sitting there and kind of feeling like I can't get up, but also feeling like, yeah, no, I don't want to get up. I don't want to come back to my body. But I didn't have the sense of leaving my body then, but it felt like I had become detached from it. And at some point I got over the dumb game I was playing with her, and I get up and I'm like, yeah, no, I'm good. I'm straight. Let's go. And she'd been drinking heavily, was all swoony and slurry. And we got into my car, which was a 1970 Volkswagen camper van that I used to call the Orgasmatron, because when you shift up between third and fourth gear, between 40 and 50 miles an hour, the steering and the axle, the whole front end would start shivering and shuddering, like the wheels are about to pop off and the steering wheel is going to come off in your hand, and then you can accelerate or brake, to get out of it. But there was this weird ass phase that it would go through. And I remember we got onto the freeway. It was one of the older highways in San Diego called the 163, and it goes through this canyon that's crowded with eucalypti, and so the city that's all around you just kind of disappears, and you're going through the back end of Balboa Park, and it's a woodland, and there's these fanciful, beautiful old, Victorian and Edwardian era bridges arching over it. And there's one bridge that's enormous enough that it has like his windows set into the buttresses and pontoons and everything, and it feels like a dreamscape. And to this day, whenever I'm having those kind of deep working shit out dreams, I find myself wandering around in Balboa Park at night, just trying to find something or somebody. As I was driving, when it went up through when the Volkswagen had an orgasm, I left my body. And I remember looking down on myself driving and seeing my girlfriend leaning against the window in the passenger seat. And then I was looking down on the roof, and I remember seeing that although I'd washed my van that weekend, the top of it was still filthy and had branches and leaves and stuff on it. And then I rose higher still, and I was looking down on the bridge, and I saw somebody looking down at my van as it passed. And then I was looking down on the whole city, and the city started to disappear in the mist that was rolling in off the ocean. And I kind of followed my van as it went south on the 163 for like a mile or two. And I was marveling at, but not really all that concerned, that my body was still managing to drive the Volkswagen van without me in it. And
yeah, that's nuts.
And right. And so and that freeway abruptly ends at a light as it comes into the back end of the gas lamp or downtown San Diego. And I remember seeing the van stop at the light, and that was what pulled me back down. It wasn't, oh my God, I got to stop the van. The van stopped without me. It was like, holy shit, my body's going to go on without me, and it's going to leave me up here, and it's going to start voting Republican and become gainfully employed. I can't let that shit happen. So I repossessed my body, and I remember coming to with like just this jolt, and then looking over and seeing my girlfriend hanging out the window and vomiting all over the side of my van. And I took care of her, and then I went into the coffee shop and there were a few, my friends were still there, and I was like, holy crap, something really weird just happened. I left my body while I was driving the van. Here, get in my van and I'll tell you about it. And yeah, that was when my van stopped being the party van. But like, I'd had a salvia experience, and salvia is one of those drugs. I looked it up. I can't find King Crypto for shit. Of course, that name's been thoroughly ruined by cryptocurrency. But I think it's one of those. It was one of those, probably either a designer or a borderline illegal substance. It could have been salvia. It could have been a mix. It could have been bath salts. It could have been fuck only knows. But for a while, you could. I mean, for a long time, you've been able to get salvia, which is a traditional substance. I mean, the paralysis and the heart thing make me think it could be datura, but I can't imagine a sadistic motherfucker repackaging and selling datura to unwary kids. Wait, on the other hand, yes, I can,
Yeah.
because I've been to a head shop. But yeah, my brother and I heard about salvia, and we went up to San Francisco and went to a head shop in Berkeley, and we bought a big bag of it. We got a pipe. We went over to my buddy's house. We're like, yeah, it's like weed, but acid on top of it, or cheap DMT or something. And I remember taking a big hit of this stuff, and it was awful. But I didn't leave my body, but the reality vanished in a way that was profoundly unsettling. All of the walls became windows looking out on an entirely different city from San Francisco, and all of the windows became walls. And so it was very much like this mirror universe that was inside, hidden inside, or rolled up, or just hiding behind our reality. And it was some sort of opposite land. And I remember very distinctly looking down and I felt like something was biting my ass and my back. I just felt hundreds of teeth. And I looked down, and I was sitting in a chair made of fucking teeth.
Oh my God.
And right at that point, I'm like, okay, this is shit. This sucks. I came out of it, and my brother is just about to take a hit. I'm like, wait, no, you'll find out. Go ahead. And so we didn't try it again. We were just like, okay, we're just going to put that into the lesson learned box. And then maybe 4 or 5 years later, I was looking around in my head chest with all my pipes and paraphernalia and accoutrement, and I came across the salvia stuff, and I'm like, let's try it again. I mean, set and setting are really important to a psychedelic experience. So I'm in my own home, sitting in this nice, easy chair, totally 100% not made of teeth. Maybe it'll be different. Maybe it was just where I was at, inwardly or outwardly, that caused me to go where I did. I hit it, and the exact same thing happened. The same room, chair came out, and it was like that Joe Hill story where you realized that, yeah, maybe everything that you thought happened between the last salvia trip and this salvia trip that you just took, that's reality. And or maybe everything that happened in between that trip and this trip, that was the hallucination. I got up off my teeth chair, and I took a hit of this stuff, and I found myself in this, reality where I'm not constantly being bit on the ass. It was a wonderful place, but I can't afford to go there again, or I can't find the substance that had allowed me to do it.
I can't imagine why anyone would want to own a throne of teeth. I just feel like it would be pointy and uncomfortable to sit on.
Well, we should hang out more often. I could introduce you to some people. Okay. Right. And so, I mean, for the Flying Nun, to bring it back to me where it belongs, I am, like a lot of skeptical people, secretly and guiltily fascinated by the transcendental experience and the metaphysical and the possibility of these other realities. And I've tried a lot of these substances, not just to get high, but to find out what's there. I mean, with DMT, which is a more concentrated form of ayahuasca, it's derived from the same plants, although you can't be sure what's in it, whether it's legit actually from Banisteria, the plant, actually, because ayahuasca is made from 2 plants. One of the plants is a vine that always forms a double helix, as if it's conveying this secret message, or it's telling you, yeah, I can allow you to get so fucked up that you can rewrite your DNA. And the shamans who make and use ayahuasca in the Amazon believe that these 2 substances, these 2 chemicals, one of which induces, I think, a surge of tryptamine, and the other one is a tryptamine uptake inhibitor, tryptamine reuptake inhibitor. So it prevents the tryptamine from getting flushed out of your system, so it can last longer. And this is, I mean, that's an incredibly sophisticated conclusion to make that would take scientists a long time to figure it out, even if they were heads. combining, the rigor of scientific method with the desire to attain these other realities and get to the heart of what they are. But the shamans believe that they discovered it because the plants told them that. Hey, psst, put me in a pot with that one, roast me, get some good a good driving rhythm going, and I'll take you to the spirit land and find out your kid's name. That's a laudable goal, but it's, of course, as with most things people who aren't American do, it takes too fucking long. So you can smoke DMT in a crack pipe and it tastes like you're smoking robot pubes. I mean, there's nothing about it that makes you think, holy cow, yeah, man, we're gonna get high and it's gonna be fun. But the world goes away and incredible fucking things happen, and people report seeing these entities, these playful, mischievous entities that seem to be like the secret operators of these multi-dimensional universes. And they're usually known as, they're referred to as the machine elves. And the machine elves will sometimes show you a secret, sometimes play a prank on you, sometimes give you a message. I mean, I smoked DMT one time laying in a hammock near like these 30-foot high ficus hedges in my backyard. And I remember the ficus hedges turned into a host of green gods, not unlike, the Parliament of the Green and Swamp Thing. And they both the individual plants speaking animated and coherently, but also as avatars of the natural world. They were like, we just want to use this time to let you know how much we love you and appreciate how much you do, and we're all connected and we're all part of this family. And
now, when something like this happens,
yeah,
this one particularly, like, is this like a cool experience for you, or are you fucking terrified?
Yeah, no, it was filled with both. It became a feedback loop. There was a feeling of falling and terror at first, and then when it resolves into this manifestation, there was both the feeling like my brain was being directly kind of programmed to feel wonder and joy, and also it was a conscious response to this message. And of course, it comes and goes in like 5 minutes, and by the end, you just have this feeling of not really a hangover, but this feeling of kind of exhausted wonder that you've had a mystical, wondrous experience. And so it's difficult to sort out, is that because my brain just showed me this awesome thing and gave me this message, and whether it came from outside my brain or not, it's still a beautiful thing, or whether your brain has been, kind of like a psychiatrist could do with temporal lobe, with direct electrical stimulation. Have I been zapped or wired to feel good like this about it? There's a classification of hallucinogens known as entheogenics. And I get into this in my book on America, but they're specific hallucinatory psychedelics. Their properties commonly include the sense that you are being contacted by a higher reality, whether it's gods, aliens, machine elves, your ancestors. You go down those individual rabbit holes trying to decide whether that's an outside thing or whether that's your own cultural history or our own shared interpreted reality. Because people that have UFO abduction experiences, there's a lot, their descriptions of the phenomenon and what they felt before this happened and everything has a lot in common. Temporal lobe epilepsy, visions, and these other higher states. And so the fact that it's UFOs and not, an Old Testament angel coming down out of the sky as wheels within wheels and fire everywhere and wings and eyes all over it and saying, fear not. Whether it's our cultural programming. There's a drug called iboga, which is a really rigorous, harsh, onerous trip that really forces you to sniff and ingest and reflect on your own shit. And it manifests as there's a god in it called iboga, and iboga's not there to he's not there to show you a good time. He's there to help you work out your shit. And a lot of people have used iboga and been able to quit smoking, quit heroin. Yeah, iboga.
Do you smoke it, or what do you do?
You smoke it. It's a bark. It's one of the few hallucinogens that come from Africa. Africa, as rich as it is and everything else, has relatively few psychedelic substances, and they tend to be kind of bummers. Whereas the New World is crazy, just overflowing with psychedelic substances, many of which have never been explored or exploited yet. Certainly not saying we need more untested shamanic drugs turning up on in head shops. But it's really funky how that happened, and would go a long way towards explaining why the vast difference in mindset between Western European and Arabic cultures, and every culture in the New World, in which use of mystical and shamanic use of controlled substances is kind of baked in, and it informs their worldview. It maybe might explain why there were so many fewer assholes, and why they didn't come over to our place and fuck our shit up and enslave us. To tie it to other products that I'm doing, that I'm flogging right now, I co-edited an anthology with the late great Joseph S. Pulver Sr. Called New Maps of Dream, exploring one of my favorite fictional kind of variations on this theme, H.P. Lovecraft's Dreamlands fantasies, which are it's as large of a canon, and he loved it perhaps even more deeply than he loved the Cthulhu mythos. But whereas the Cthulhu mythos was him trying to grasp why the material world hated him so much, and why everything seems so fucking wrong, the Dreamlands contained his aspirations and his love, and it was their stories, their fantasy stories, in which ordinary or even subordinary people are able to find their way through the very relatively shallow waters of individual dreams into this shared other and higher, more realer than real reality, to which only very accomplished deep dreamers are allowed to enter. It's definitely a fantasy realm with monsters and demons and gods and flying ships that come down from the moon. But at the same time, it's also you can meet real people there, and there are people who died a long time ago but managed to get a foothold in the Dreamlands, so that even though their physical bodies are gone, they still persist and still have a life. And of course, yeah, because for this and a lot of other reasons, Lovecraft was a younger writer, and he was so good at explicating the horror and repulsion of the material world that it really overshadowed his more wispy and kind of woo-woo depictions of wonder and beauty. But they're really poignant precisely because he does juxtapose the dreary awfulness of the material world with the fascinating infinite possibilities of the dream world. And both to try to champion these things and try to bring them back into the popular consciousness, but also to examine why this kind of fantasy has fallen so far from favor, and why we are still laboring in variations of Tolkien's kind of fantasy. And that defines what is fantasy, which is the most wrong-headed notion of all, because fantasy itself should be literally anything. And so when it falls into a tradition and falls into a thing where people are saying, that's not fantasy, that doesn't feel imagined, it doesn't remind me of Tolkien at all. But also why that kind of notion of dreaming at a time when we are so preoccupied with and live so much of our lives as consumers of dreams, whether it's video games or TV shows. I mean, our whole world kind of was shut down, and we retreated into our individual or collective dream realities. We're all binging TV shows until we're in a hypnagogic state. And what I was trying to posit, as an editor, not as a writer, and I didn't try to ram this down anybody's throats, but it was declared in the theme. It's like, why, part of what I would like you guys to explore is not just revisiting the Dreamlands, but also maybe try to show us what the Dreamlands are now, taking as for granted that Lovecraft's objective dream reality did exist. What has happened? Maybe it's still out there and we can't get there. Maybe popular culture and maybe we've gotten so receptive to dreams as received wisdom and entertainment that these companies, that companies and artists make for us, that they've supplanted our ability to create it. The same way that drugs, if you take an opiate, it suppresses your brain's ability to produce natural opiates, so that when you get off of it, you completely crash. Maybe we're so hooked on the dreams that from our exterior that we've lost that deeper that deeper reality that maybe bound us to the world and imbued it with a sense of meaning, even if it's all just us, if it's the collective meaning that we create, of being able to go down there. And having lost that, maybe that's why we feel so disaffected and so frustrated, and why we're binging on these dreams, getting binging on these manufactured dreams and getting diminishing returns on them, precisely because we are getting further and further disconnected from the big dream, the dream that dreams us.
Good God. Dillshine.
Thank you for coming to my TED Talk, everybody.
So what's going on with this anthology now? Is it done?
Well, we proposed it like 5 years ago. I pitched the idea of a Dreamlands anthology to an editor at Chaosium, and he was like, "Well, it's funny you should mention that, because I was just talking to Joe Pulver just 5 minutes ago, and he said the same thing." So I went and found Joe, and at first we decided to wrestle for it, but then we thought about that, and then we finished a pack of cigarettes together, and then we decided, why don't we just team up? And so we put together a crack hand-picked list of dream explorers, and we approached them about it and everything. And we gave them 2 years, and then fast forward to 2017 at Necronomicon, and Joe had a catastrophic health event, and he was unable to make it. Indeed, he was unable. He really lost his sight and ability to process these things. And right around then, about half the folks, it was a harder assignment than I think it had first appeared. And a lot of people who said, "Hell yeah, I'm in," weren't able to find it, weren't able to get there. So I found some other folks, and the book was put together in 2019. PS Publishing had it then, but like PS, they do wonders, but they're still a very small outfit. And so it's kind of been on pause with them for a long time, but I've been nagging them, and we got together some beautiful art by Marcelo Gallegos, one of my favorite artists to work with. He did the illustrations for my chapbook, The Polite Ones, which Dim Shores put out. And we've got an amazing anthology. They're finally ready to get it going. I'm heartbroken that Joe wasn't able to see it and hold it in his hands, but it's also awesome that it's still that even though we lost him last year, he still has works for us and still has stuff to show us. And yeah, I can't wait for everybody to see it. As I understand it, and I'm being cautious because I've been wrong before, but I think we can expect to see this thing by the end of this year. New Maps of Dream, it'll be coming out in hardback. We're getting the signature sheets together and all that good stuff right now. But
can you tell us who's in it? Well, not yet.
Oh yeah, I can give you some names just off the top of my head. Oren Gray, Nick Mamatas, Rio Still Luz. Did I say Fracassi? Karen Warren, SP Miskowski.
Nice.
And
sounds good.
Matthew Bartlett. And yeah, many more that it's only my cracked up brain that's not getting there. They're not a many more. It's an all-star cast, and it moves from strength to strength. Scott R. Jones, hi there. There's a ton of good shit. And I'm doing a radio show in Portland now for some reason. If you go to
what?
Yeah. I have a radio show in Portland. They don't know I don't actually live there right now. Don't tell anybody. But yeah, if you go to freeformportland.org, I do a radio show called Bionic Exotica. It's on every other Monday night. In fact, it airs tonight at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. You can hear it streaming online. It's kind of, I take my rather problematic love for kitsch lounge exotica stuff from like post World War II up through the 60s, which was rank cultural appropriation, but it was also Western white people's attempt to understand and appreciate other ways of life and other cultures. And I take that as the base, as the seed, and use that to explore like newer and modern weird variations in music that has a strong sense of place, that is reaching out and grasping to the other, whether it's East Asian interpretations of American pop songs, or African or electronic reinterpretations of classical indigenous forms of music. There's a kind of electronic Mexican music called Nortec that I just really fucking love. It's been around for 20 years. There's a lot of amazing stuff going on with like techno cumbia, the traditional music of Colombia. It's some rad fun stuff, and it streams online, but they also have FM transmitters. So I mean, that's the thing that really excites me about it, is you can play something for somebody who's in their car and change the nature of their commute. It's a hot live medium. And I was going through some shit the last several months. I know everybody's been going through some shit with the pandemic, but mine was redoubled, and I had occasion to kind of reflect on my life and feel like, wow, it's all over, and there's nothing really to look forward to except reflecting on the mistakes you made that got you here. I have been equally disabused of that and flipped over into a state where I'm trying to navigate between questioning whether everything that's happening to me is too good to be true, or the equally unbearably, woo-woo conclusion that, well, everything happens for a reason, and all the bad stuff that you're going through, maybe it all happened to prepare you for this very great and unthinkably amazing, beautiful thing that's happening to you right now. It really is, and you really did earn it. Yeah, it's kind of changed my outlook on my past work, but it's also reinvigorated me and fired my imagination. I look forward to kind of trying to take readers to places that they want to go, instead of kind of confronting you with, hey, me and your nightmares want to take you to the shittiest place you can imagine being. Actually, it's too shitty for you to imagine being, but trying to do something neat and wonderful. I mean, and with Flying Nun, I try to take that kind of those mainsprings of cosmic horror. What if you were thrown out of your own body and into this other higher reality, and there was nothing there? You felt, you see the void, but you also recognize that you have greater powers than you thought you had, and maybe even the ability to change that reality. What would you do with it? I wanted to do a cosmic horror story about empowerment. I mean, so many it's funny, the pulp existentialism of a lot of cosmic horror is really kind of a tchotchke or an ugly beanie baby. It's comfort food to a lot of people who feel ennui but aren't genuinely depressed. People for whom there's a lot of people in the world for whom they don't need cosmic horror. They can't afford the luxury of horror at all, because horror is in daily life. And so if they were going to a fantasy reality, they would want to know what it would feel like to have power, to have the ability to know and see a higher reality and maybe change it. And recognizing that experience and exploring that, instead of just doing awful things to made up versions of myself to explore why I'm bored. Genuinely going through some traumatic experiences caused me to kind of reassess what I can do. Not that I want to write superhero or fairy tale stories, but it really radically changed my perception of the stakes. And I feel like I want to try and rededicate myself to doing things with my fiction and with my art, and even with my cheesy ass music that leave people feeling a little bit stronger and a little bit more armored against the void, because the void is real, but so is love. God damn it.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Right.
I mean,
so bam, to steal from your other guest earlier today, right? How did it? Really? Yeah, bam! Finally, a fine artisanal basket made of tangents and pubes.
What a great day of Philly,
right?
Conversations,
right? And I feel like we should probably leave it there, because I've got other stuff that I should do, but. Damn, I want to thank you. I would love to come on this show again. If I think of anything important to talk about, you caught me at the peak of my braining. And so, yeah, I was braining so fucking hard. And I this was wonderful. Thank you, Max.
That was fantastic. And congrats and everything. Tomorrow, the book comes out.
Beautiful. I can't wait to see it. I can't wait for people to read it. Publishers Weekly, all people seem to really, really get what I was trying to do with it, which is, the best kind of compliment, because it makes me feel like the message has been received, and I can't wait to see what readers think of it. It's a big departure.
It is. I'm so glad Publishers Weekly picked it up, because they so often just say fuck off when I send them something.
Oh hell yeah. No, it's always a surprise, but particularly with that one, especially because it was kind of a slight thing. But I really want to thank you. I mean, you shouldn't have to do a podcast to get a free hand job, Max Booth, but I want to thank. This wouldn't exist if not for you challenging me to do it.
Thank you for accepting the challenge. I did not expect you to actually write it. I wanted you to, but I assumed you would say, funny, and then not do it.
Yeah, no, I did laugh and say funny, but then I went, no, but what if you did though? And
Yeah.
it like the best kind of ideas, it pulled together a lot of other free floating things and inspirations and notions that weren't quite ideas yet until it congealed into this thing that, yeah, I was compelled to. It was like naming that baby from the other side. I didn't. At the best times, I didn't feel like I was just making this shit up. I felt like I was finding it.
Alright, folks, that was my conversation with Cody Goodfellow. Go buy The Flying Nun. That's all I'm promoting in this episode, obviously. I want you to buy The Flying Nun. N-O-N-E. Buy it any place you can buy books. I will link to the website in the show notes. The book also features original illustrations from Betty Rocksteady. So, that's cool. Go buy it. The Flying Nun. Cody Goodfellow. Have fun!
Live spooky, die spooky.